Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Untethering Shame podcast. We are so thrilled to have Andrea Barr returning to the podcast today. If you haven't yet caught our first episode together, do yourself a favor and give it a listen. It's linked in the show notes. Andrea is an ICF certified coach, the host of the All Figured Out podcast, and a powerhouse that helps parents find that elusive work-life rhythm so they can have more quality time with family while still growing personally and professionally. Today, Andrea and I dive into the heart of ambition, what it really means, how it changes, and the unique challenges it can bring. We unpack fears around failure and judgment, the pressure to choose just one path, and the all too common urge to seek permission instead of embracing our true desires. This episode is a refreshing reframe of ambition, not as a sprint, but a slow, intentional burn, grounded in personal values and fulfillment. We're here to challenge the idea of ambition as a ladder to climb and instead see it as an evolving journey that unfolds on our terms. So get comfortable, get ready to laugh, reflect, and feel empowered to chase what matters most to you. Let's dive in. Gosh, I'm so glad that you're here. I feel like I've been so excited since we were recording episode 1. I'm like, when do we get to do this again?
That is so beautiful. Thank you. Well, thanks for having me back. You know, you finish an episode like that where you just bare your soul. I don't even remember what I said. Probably should have listened to that as a before I prep for this. But I remember being like, oh, my old self would have been like, oh my God, what did I just say? Is there shame here? But I remember being like, nope, Kyira got all of me. Yeah. And so thanks for having me back.
Oh, well, and I think the cool part in those moments, one, I think there's such a cool chemistry that you and I have that was right out of the gates where I'm like, we should start 12 podcasts because I could just, pick the topic. I don't even like Roman history, but I'll learn it to have a podcast with you. I just feel like we vibe so well. So that was the first part. And then the second part being I do want to see, because I think you've worked really hard in your life to create the willingness to build insight. So obviously sometimes insight building is really challenging, but you're willing to build it and to be open to the fact that maybe you quote unquote got it wrong, or maybe you made a decision that was rooted in shame, or maybe it was a decision that was rooted in supposed to's, and you're willing to ask the question. And I think that's what makes for such an exciting conversation.
Oh, thank you. Well, I feel like I don't know, to me, you're a celebrity. You've got this vibe about you. Now we're just going back and forth complimenting.
Yeah. I'll do it. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So listeners, just 10 more minutes of this.
Yeah.
But people, you're just, I don't know. The fact that you said that about me, I was like, oh my God, I really feel so special by you saying that. And when I had you on my podcast, so many people reached out to me being like, who the fuck is Kyira? She's so cool. I was like, I know. It's this woman I met online in a Facebook group. She's from Portland. I don't know. She's damn cool though. So thanks for having me back.
Oh, of course. And I'm super pumped because I know we could roll the dice, and I'm not even joking. I would learn history to have a conversation with you, which anyone that knows me knows that is oh
my God, I hate history.
Telling you where a country or a state is, or telling you any historical fact other than what I ate yesterday, or, some other thing that obviously my brain's going to hold on to. I've got nothing. I am useless. I don't know how I did so well in those subjects in school because I cannot retain it. I think maybe it was just cram it all in, take the test, and then let it leave. But thankfully, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about ambition, which is a way, I think for most people, they'd be like, I'd so much rather talk about history than this. But this feels way more exciting to me.
I know. What's the clickbait on the title? How are you going to get people to listen to this? Because I think I'd scroll right past ambition.
I think I'll say Roman history, maybe. Or
the history of Canada with my Canadian friend, Andrea, of which I don't know a single bit of history about Canada. So there you go.
I think that, we could just say like a bear. There was a
Yes.
bear, like,
Yes.
you know, like
Yes.
something around that. And then people are gonna be like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
shame in the bear. You know, I
Yes.
think
Yes.
that's gonna get him in here.
Shame when the bear attacks. I like
Ooh,
that.
yeah.
I
Which
like it.
honestly really could be the subtitle, because I feel like the
Yes.
bear can be our ambition that comes in hot. You're not quite sure what to do with it. And you're like, do I run? Do I embrace it? Do I become the bear? What do I do?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Ambition. What does it mean to you? Like when you said ambition, and we were talking about this beforehand, we were emailing, what did you mean? Like, what's your definition?
I think to me, it feels like it's like sort of this internal drive. Like I almost think about how fast my heart beats as an association to my ambition. Sort of this idea of like something that drives me enough that I get so excited that I want to do it. Like this is the thing that makes me feel charged and energized. There's some sort of electrical component if I'm thinking about heart rate and charge, but it's this idea of getting somewhere and wanting to get to that somewhere. Like there's other goals that I have that like I'm not super jazzed about. Like my ambition's pretty low, but my commitment to doing the things is pretty high, if that makes sense. So it's just this like something that I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. Like that is it. And when I think about it, I don't want to get to the end of my life not having tried to get to wherever that is.
I love that. I picture that, you know how in any sort of description for like time, productivity, accomplishment, your strengths versus skills, like all these things, it's always a square, and the top right is always where you actually want to be. I picture it. I picture ambition as like I'm sure there's an ambition quadrant of some sort, and it's like the motivation plus the drive, or like the actual willingness to accomplishment, urgency, and I don't know what it is, but it's something in that top right quadrant is kind of what I'm hearing from you. And I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Because it's true. There's stuff that you can be willing to go after and do it because you kind of feel like there are things in life we should/have to do. Right.
Right.
But then there's like the things that are like really light you up.
Yeah. Yeah. See the electrical piece, the light up, like there's something in there.
Gosh, yeah.
See, vibing on that. I mean, because I think the big part being it's something where it's like almost a hunger that you feel. And so you're committed to satisfying the hunger in some way. I'm curious too, because so we have a very shared definition. I don't think that's always what I thought about it. Like, did you grow up? Did people talk about ambition? What do you remember feeling about being an ambitious person? Like, did you seek that out? Did you want to be seen as an ambitious person?
Such a good question. Okay, my immediate response is no. Because for me, it wasn't about committed. Okay, for me, my definition as I think about when I was younger, when I heard ambitious, I heard boring, linear, going after one thing, doing rep basketball, going and becoming an investment banker. Like to me, all that was like one stream. Like you could only do one thing versus I grew up in a really cool family in a really cool way where it was like, and in the school that I went to this little all-girl school, everything was about being well-rounded. And while for some people that could have been problematic, for me, that's actually how I am naturally. Like I love to do lots of different things. Like I'm a multi-potentialite. I get really lit up by a lot of different things. And so for me, that was awesome. And whether that was intentional, like, oh, we see this in Andrea, we're going to help foster this, or if that was just the values of like my family, school, whatever. So for me, it was like ambition was like an obsession with one or two things, which like really bored me. Versus I was in musical theater. I played basketball. I was like ambitious enough about school, but not to the point where it was my life. I wanted to have a sleepover with friends every weekend. Like it was just like, I was like pumped about a lot of different things, but not ambitious about one. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, especially because as you said it and you talked about sort of one thing, I immediately started thinking about law and the pursuit of law and just the sort of like having to commit everything to one thing. And I think there has to be some crossover in what I learned with that too, because I still have, even the way we're describing it now, where it's this very positive thing, this commitment or this drive, this willingness to go for something, I still do have that feeling of like, if you're ambitious, it means you're willing to choose something over something else. And so it does come with some sort of a stake of giving something up, which is, I think, actually important, because if you're going to do anything really well, you have to make the commitment that other things you can't do as well, or you can't do at all. But there is some sort of like, I wonder if that's why it feels like such a hard topic, because it's a hesitation to want to be ambitious, but also this idea that to be ambitious says something about me and my level of success and commitment. And I want it without also having to give up everything I have to get it.
Yeah. Okay. And that terrified me though. Like that relationship with time that most of us have, but I can only speak from my own experience of like being terrified that I don't have enough time in this life to do all the things that I want to do. See, that terrified me because it was like, if I have to, so say I want, say I want to have this, I want to have a coaching business, or I want to change parents' lives for the better through work-life rhythms or whatever, my, I shouldn't say whatever.
Right?
Yeah. Just hypothetically business that I have.
Yeah.
But say I also am like, so when I was little, I wanted to have like be a hairdresser, but say I wanted to, and say I wanted to also pursue that. To me, I have a visceral reaction of wanting to throw up if I were to be told that I could only ever do one thing. And I had a friend on my podcast, and she said, you can't do everything all at once, and you can't do it by yourself. And what I loved about that is that you can't do everything all at once. And so she always talks about what can you put on that not yet list. And that literally, I say literally in the actual sense of like, I feel like I can breathe again when I think about it that way. So it's like, go for it in this coaching business, in this season of life, what I'm after. And if it's still on your heart and it's still something you want to pursue down the line, like the hair salon can be on the not yet list. Like nothing is finite. And that makes me feel better as an ambitious person who wants to tackle everything. And that makes me be able to move forward, because I can also get paralyzed really quickly and really easily when it comes to my own ambitions. So it's like, I want to have like million downloads on my podcast each month, for instance. But if I think about that and it's like, well, that's the only thing I can be doing, it's like, no, that just requires like some things to be put on the not yet list, not right now list.
It's so interesting. Have you ever heard of the term premature identity foreclosure?
Oh God, I don't think so. That's cool.
I
Tell
know.
me more.
So one of my professors, when I was getting my master's degree, had worked, I think she was already working as a therapist, or maybe it was during her training, but she worked with people that were in gifted and talented programs. They've since done away with this a lot in the US. I don't know how it's going in other places, but I was one of those students that was in these gifted and talented classes. So you'd get pulled out of your regular class, put into these G&T groups, and really just like, you are the top students, you're excelling, you're kind of pushed in this way. It was kind of like the level right below skipping a grade, because you're academically performing very well. And one of the things that happens when people are seen as these very high achievers is they often get kind of funneled. It's the same as like my daughter's now 4.5. She's fucking great at gymnastics. Like if she wanted to go, I don't want to be like she's going to be an Olympian, because that's, all parents think that on some level. But like, she's very good. If she really wanted to commit to doing it, her natural ability and her body build is great. Like she could go very far with it if she wanted. I have yet to be like, do you want to take a more serious gymnastics class? Do you want to start doing this? Do you want to join a team? Because she's 4.5, and I don't want to put her on a tunnel where she stops exploring. Like this fall, her choice for a sport was flag football. Like I want her to go play different things and not just do one thing. And so what ends up happening within this identity foreclosure piece is someone starts to get on a track. So for me, it was medicine. And then you just keep going and going, and everybody helps push you further and further down that track, or run in the front and drag you forward towards that. And so you have this premature foreclosure. Instead of the exploration mindset, it's this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it really, really well. And it's tunnel vision until you get there. And then people do it. And it's the people that go into law, go into medicine, become the investment banker, whatever it is that they set out to do, and they're fucking miserable. But ambition was about taking them through that to that place, instead of going, you can be so excited about this and, like you said, 10 other things, or you can be so excited about this for now, and then it can change. And so a lot of people that went through these programs, that's part of why they stopped them, is they would have these like 20-something, 30-something-year-old, quote unquote, midlife or, quarter life crises of, I don't know who I am because I've been chasing this one part of myself for so long. I can't fill in the gap of anything else. And then it's, how do you undo that sort of tunnel vision focus, and even give people the opportunity to get curious again, because it's been conditioned out of them since they were, 10.
That is so interesting. And I wonder, I'm picturing it like a river. Oh my God, I'm such an analogy person, but like I picture it like a river. It's like you're enrolling other people to help like feed and push the river along, and you're like going down the stream. And I wonder if some people are miserable because they felt like they never got to explore other options, and they might have actually ended up in the same spot, but they would have been happier had they had the opportunity to explore and feel like they weren't being pushed down that river. Yes. And you know what it's also making me think of is how important it is on the flip side, how important and helpful it is once you do that exploration and you do find something that really lights you up, goes back to that electrical circuit.
Right.
How cool it is when you then can enroll people to help push you along. Like, I actually did a human design session with somebody, a woman who's going to come on my podcast soon. And I was just curious about it. I was like, what is human design? Keep hearing about it, can like ish dabble in astrology things sometimes. But I was like, hey, if it's just another piece of information that I can react to, that's great. So long story short, did the session. And one of the things that she talked about with my, I don't even know what the language is, like what my, human design state or being or whatever it is enrolling other people and not. So when I have an ambition of some sort, it's not about me asking for permission from other people, which I did have a tendency to do previously. It's about just informing others, which I do not like to do. I literally launched a new website that's like, I rebuilt my website, took me a couple months, launched it a couple of days, didn't even tell my husband. Like, I was just like, not for any reason other than I was just like, nah, just did the thing. Like, I hate to inform. However, when I tried it on and I was back with family over, sometime in the summer, I was back visiting family in Ontario. And I was like, I'm just going to try doing a little bit more informing. It was so interesting. It was like, normally I'm the one who wants to deflect and ask the question. Like, I want to podcast everybody I meet.
Yep.
I don't want to be podcasted, right? except with Kyira, if she's interviewing me. And it was so interesting to like try that on, to like inform others and some of the dreams and ideas I had, even if they were half baked. And what came of that was like some interesting ideas, or, oh, hey, I could connect you with this person. And I was like, oh, like an ambition doesn't just have to be mine. Like, it's my ambition, but it's okay to let other people in. And I know you and I were chatting about this via email too. It's like that whole thing around, but do I want to say it out loud? Because what if it doesn't happen? What if I fail? Is this embarrassing?
Yes.
And being okay with just sharing the dreams, even if they're half baked, and even if they don't happen, and even if I fail. So many little rants in one, but ambition, man, it's such an interesting one.
Well, and that idea, I think what you just said, because as soon as you said it, you knew I was probably going to write it down. I'm like, why? Why do you hate to inform? Because if you're asking permission, you're putting them in a position of power. If you're informing, you've assumed a position of power. You've stuck. You've taken claim. You made a claim.
Yep.
Again, grammar would be another thing that I still don't know. And like the words that I use, and Jordan's like, I don't think you know what that word actually means.
But you use it with conviction.
100%. I said like that. Yesterday I said that car was going exorbitantly fast. And he's like, I don't think that's right. And he's like, no, that's about money. And I was like, yeah. Real fast, just like a lot of money was worth of fast. That was so what gas. I meant. Yeah, exactly. The cost to them is so high.
What I meant, Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like that piece, it's also then, if you've put people in a position of power for such a long time, once you're informing, you still have that like hesitancy to put them in that position of power. So if I tell them, then what? If I tell people I'm redoing my website and they look at it and they don't like it, or they judge me, or they think my idea is stupid, they still hold a position of power because you haven't yet gotten solid on, you don't need their approval.
No.
You're just inviting them to get to know you more.
Mm-hmm.
I think I also struggled with, once I tell somebody something, I used to be afraid, I think going back to the changes, it was like I had an art business up until right before Everly was born. I was selling my art the summer before she was born. I literally did an art show. It was the stupidest idea I ever had. I did an art show every single weekend. I was fucking pregnant in 90+ degree heat, doing these art shows by myself, like canopies, big tables, like all this stuff that I would have to haul blocks from your car to like set up at these art shows. But I was like all in. Like I loved doing that. I loved creating. And then after she was born, I was like, it doesn't feel the same. I don't want my art to be for sale. I want to like color with crayons and messy paint with my kid. And I will find the ways that art stays a part of it, but I closed that part of my business. I was like, I don't want that business anymore. For a couple years, I held on to the website. I was like feeling like I did something wrong. And it was like, to me, I don't like sharing things in the chance that then I feel like that's how they're going to describe me and know me. And then what happens if that looks different? And then my fear becomes, I don't want them to think it's because I couldn't do it, which goes back to the medicine thing, goes back to everything else of like, if my ambition changes, if my focus changes, their thought is going to be it's because I couldn't hack it, not because I've watered that plant to now it's like good and it's on its own and I'm ready to go water another plant.
It's like you want to make it like a redirect on your website being like, this website is closed not because I couldn't hack it, because I wanted to.
Exactly. This was 100% my choice. Yeah.
A, who cares?
Right.
B, nobody's thinking about you or this business. Well, you know, but like, I totally get that. So and you also don't want the I don't know. I think I don't want to inform because like, I don't want the reaction. I just don't want people to even think about it. Like, It's funny how extroverted I am or how outgoing I am, but then I still have some, as we all do, like introverted and extroverted tendencies. And like, there's still this part of me that's like weirdly private about some things because I don't want feedback. You know, like you probably didn't even want people to like, I don't know if this is true. Like you didn't want people to even react about it. You just wanted it to like.
I just wanted it to be.
Just to be.
Period. Moving on to the next chapter.
But then why do we care so much about other people's reactions?
I mean,
and feedback.
To me, I go back to like all of it being rooted in when we're kids of being conditioned to believe that we are not worthy unless fill in the blank. This is who I'm supposed to be, how I'm supposed to be, even like the beauty of all the exploration in your family, or even all the wonderful things we can experience with friends, with teachers, with all different caregivers, whatever. There's still the subliminal messages that come through of then this is what's expected of me. This is how they've come to know me. This is who I'm supposed to be and how I'm supposed to show up. And when your brain is just like, my job is to figure out how I have to exist in this world to securely feel like I am loved, connected, and I belong. It's always going to anchor a little bit to that. So then it's still all about this, I have to be X or I need to be chasing Y. And if I shift my identity too much, that's a risk. People are going to not think I'm the same person. They're not going to think I'm worthy. They're going to have these judgments. They're going to have X, Y, and Z. What is that flaw, quote unquote, that they're going to find in whatever that information is? And I think then for many of us, it goes back to, if at our core, we don't believe that we are worthy and lovable, if we try a business and it fails, if we get married and we decide to end the marriage, if we move someplace and we're like, shit, that didn't work out, and we go back, if we believe that our connection is about making the right choice and doing the right thing and being in that state all the time, making the quote unquote wrong choice or the changing of our mind, that exposes a flaw. And then suddenly they might be like, I don't really know about her. I don't know if she and then everything is sort of like recalculated. What does that mean if you're no longer this person that's been categorized in their lives as that way?
Yeah. I don't know why a eulogy is coming up, but like I've been to a lot of funerals in my life. Like I actually kind of like that my mom always brought me to funerals because I think it like normalized like life, death, and all these things. And you know, one thing I've always noticed is like no one's ever talking about and I know this is so cheesy, such an Instagram thing, but like no one's ever talking about how much money you had in the bank, what you actually accomplished. Maybe the accomplishments are related, like that someone would actually share in your eulogy might be like service related, but no one's like, they built this company and they did this and they did this. And then they had the podcast. Remember that time the podcast failed? Remember that time that company didn't work out? Right. No, people are only ever sharing about how you made them feel and like what their experience of you was.
Right.
Which is like, I don't know if that's actually helpful because it's, how do you continue to come back to that each day? But then it's also this person lived their life and they were really happy. Like that's inspiring, right? Like they were living their truth and they were ambitious in their own right and whatever they accomplished, they set out to achieve. They put their all into it. They had fun doing it. Like that's how I want to be described.
Well, I wonder, even as you said that, it sort of reinforced the idea that ambition still traditionally, I think, is used to describe career trajectory mainly, not only, but mainly. And so I think one of the things too is it feels tricky, like even just kind of as you talked about eulogies and people dying and how they're remembered, we just finalized our living trust for Everly and like getting all of our stuff together. And that was like a very hard few months of just like constantly thinking about if we die and what's going to happen and
so hard.
All of these pieces. Yeah, it's so uncomfortable. And a lot of that thinking about, again, like my goal being time. I want time. And you write a lot of this when you do your advanced directives and you think about what it would look like if you got in a serious accident or you had a terminal illness. And so you're kind of thinking about what's most important to me. And then when I think about where some of my drive comes from, it's hard for me to tease apart. Like I fucking love my job. I get to, whether it's speaking, podcasting, making YouTube videos, creating content that can put a ripple into the world that has the power to be magnified by other people. Like that is the most exciting thing to me. And to put information out there that's legit and helpful and backed, like not just like random shit in the wellness community that really doesn't do anything except make people feel like they can't figure it out. Like I really want to help that. And I would say my ambition lies on that side of I really want to continue to have the biggest impact possible. And I feel so full when I'm on a big stage, when I'm able to do those things. And as we're talking, I'm recognizing that the other part of my ambition is very much rooted in shame, the feeling of if I'm not at that level, what does it mean about me? My ego, which is saying, I want more people to see me, because we do all have that as much as we want to deny it. Like, I want to be seen a certain way. I want people to experience me this way. And then the third layer, which is still shame, just shame in a different realm, is I also don't want people to think that I am inferior to my partner. And that gets at a lot of internalized biases that I have around, being in a heteronormative relationship, male, female, cisgender couple. For the first part of our marriage, I made more money than he did. And the level of quote unquote success and like how I described that looked very different. And I was always like, I just want you to pursue what's going to help make you the most happy. And like at the time, he was getting into medical school, doing medical school, and then residency. Well, once he became an attending, his paycheck significantly went up. And I feel like mine is like a drop in the bucket now. And my ambition oftentimes is, I think, sourced more from a place of shame and scarcity of, I don't want people to think that I don't have goals. I don't want people to think that I'm not successful or that I'm relying on someone else. Like I am somehow not as strong and capable and competent. And I think that part is a stickier part where oftentimes ambition is a bit intermixed with the shame and the fear of what it would mean if I wasn't X. And that story feels too painful to live with. And then it's competing with, but I also want to be an amazing mom. And I have the capacity to be around more. And I want Jordan to pursue his dreams. And his dreams are going to take a lot more time than my dreams have. And I don't want to take that from him. And I want to free him up to then have his time be the best dad he can be. And that means I do more around the house. And then I'm like, but I want that. But also I can't because I also have to achieve on this level.
Or you don't. Yeah. It's a tricky one. Like there's no silver bullet to like fix the feelings. And I think it's important to have the feelings so that you can get cues as to what's important to you. And off air, you and I were talking about intentionality. And it's like when it comes to, I work a lot with parents who are in career or life transitions or going through the milestones of parenting, and they're trying to figure all the things out. And how does everything work together? How does your work and your family and your personal goals, how does everything work together? And one thing it always comes back to is making decisions with intentionality, because if you are intentional in what you're doing, meaning for me, that definition is like feeling confident that you've gone through the permutations and you've gone through the process that you need to go through to make a decision, whatever that is, that is intentional, and that the decisions that you're making in your life aren't just happening. Like I think my why, I've never really like actually nailed it, but it's helping people not just have life happen to them, like actually taking life and making it what you want. Like there's nothing that triggers me more than with like friends or acquaintances or just people I've never met who are just like constantly talking about what's happening to them versus what they're getting after. And of course there's shit that happens in life where like we've all experienced like crap that you're like, God, there's nothing I could have done to prevent this.
Right.
But of course it's your, it's the reaction that you have. It's what you choose from there. And so it's intentionality. And when I work with people who are like, but I'm a lawyer and I don't want to be a lawyer, but I'm a lawyer. And that is who I am. And everybody is so proud of me. And it's so cool. I love the feeling of saying I'm a lawyer, but damn, I just want to stay at home with my kids right now. I don't know what I want in 5 years, but right now I just want to stay at home with my kids. If you can go through the process of just making that decision and working with your partner, if that's applicable, and just like going through the motions to make that decision, not just being like, fuck it, I'm just going to quit. If you can be super intentional with that, then you can live with yourself. And if I'm then coaching myself on the whole, like informing people, when you're intentional and you go through, even if it's like a 5-minute process or a 5-month process, whatever it is, if you go through the motions to make an intentional decision, I don't know, I've had that experience where like, I'm so much more confident in what I'm saying when I am informing people, because I'm like, this wasn't just a, what's that, like, flash in the pan decision. Like, we thought this through on so many different levels, and I feel so excited by this. And then the person has that reaction, and you've got this like coat of armor on you where you're like, oh, Aunt Sally, I really don't give a shit about your opinion. Like, because like, this is so right for me. This is so right for my family or whatever your circumstances.
Yeah. Well, and I think then it's so much of that is around oftentimes kind of in the same coaching process, but through whether it's somebody that's got body image issues, somebody that's struggling with setting boundaries, someone that's struggling with whatever it is. A lot of the conversation is also about putting power on the decision they make either way. Like you could do this. You don't want to. And so when we spend all of our time proving like that person could stay being a lawyer.
Yes.
To quote unquote satisfy some level of pride that people have in them or to prove that they could do it, they don't want to. And it's that idea of prioritizing our want and then matching our want with our values. And I think that's that part where it's like, it's not just a flippant decision. I don't want this, or I'm running from this, or I want this, and it's impulsive. It's, this is what I want. This is how I want to feel. This is what I want my life to feel like, to look like, whatever. And these are the values that I have, and here's how they go together. And that's that piece where it's like, I would say now I'm getting to a place where I see ambition as more of a slow burn than that fast race. Because I think maybe that's the other part, is it's being that singular focus. The idea is growth happens at such an exponential rate versus saying my ambition is around showing my daughter what it's like to have more than one interest, value, and goal. So when she experiences me as somebody who's very committed to moving my body and taking care of my body, and not just strength, but mobility, fueling my body, taking rest time, whatever that looks like. I also want her to see me as somebody that can be present and can show up. And I want to have those memories. My mom, and I know now a lot of that was probably undiagnosed bipolar disorder, some work addiction, hating my family, but not being able to admit it. Like, she would work every single holiday, and then I would get dumped off with my family. Like, I never spent holidays with my mom. I don't want that for my daughter. And I know that sometimes Jordan can't help it. He's going to have to work in the emergency room. They're open 24/7, 365. There are days he can't be around, but I can fucking be there. And there is no meeting that is that important that I can't give my daughter a full day on her birthday, on Christmas, on whatever it is. And so that also doesn't mean I'm not ambitious in my job. I think the biggest thing I think about is, at least for me, I've had to reframe ambition to being now my own internal feeling of satisfaction. So each day it's when I leave wishing I could do more, I'm still excited. I'm still like in a place of ambition. Same with parenting. The goal is not to get to the end of the day and be like, go the fuck to sleep. I don't want to see your face. Like, it's to go have her have bedtime and be like, dang it. Like, we were having a really good time. Like,
I know.
And most days can't be that way. That's just not what it means to raise kids. But it's like, I want that feeling of like, I wish I could stay at the party longer. And when I don't take breaks from parenthood to go explore my job, I burn out on parenthood. When I don't take breaks from my job to go be with her, or when I don't take breaks from both to go have time with friends, to do self-care, to do home projects, like, you don't get to show up with the same excitement. And then I think you're no longer ambitious because you've lost that internal light me up feeling. You are forcing it to try to get to some level to prove that you could. And that's the moment you lose it to the external from the internal.
I love that. I mean, Kyira and I could definitely have both been Hollywood celebrities.
Right. I mean, obviously.
We've chosen not to.
We didn't want it. That's what it was. Yeah.
Want it. We said no. Stop asking us.
Please.
Stop asking us. We are busy.
I'm informing you of my decision. Yeah. My decision that I am informing you of is this. Yes.
Oh, gosh. I wish they would just leave us alone.
I know. One day. Maybe after they listen to this, they'll really understand we're serious now.
Yes.
Yeah. But it is that piece of like, I think even going back to that informing thing, when you can get to the point where I forget your aunt example's name, Aunt Nan, we'll go
Sally.
with.
It was Sally.
Aunt Sally.
I don't have an Aunt Sally. So
yeah, there you go. So that's a safe one to go
Anonymity,
with.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that idea of going, I also don't have to explain it. Because I think there's a transition point where we still, when we're quote unquote informing, we're still a little bit approval seeking of like explaining and justifying and rationalizing.
Yeah.
When you can get to that place of informing, you're just like, this is the decision that we're making. Like, Jordan, I don't understand. I mean, I do, but I am so envious. I resent that I can't do it in the same way, that it's going to take me another 30 years to probably get to the same level as what he's doing now. And in 30 years, he's going to be so much more above me. Like, he can just make a decision so confidently, having included the people that are most important. Like, we talk through every major decision about how our life design looks. We always have. But if he tells somebody something and they have a reaction, if somebody's judging him, if somebody has a story, I have never met somebody who is able to disengage with that better than him, because he's like, that's not my story to exist in. I'm not going to be upset by somebody else writing a story that they need me to play that character in their story. That's not mine. I know the character that I am writing for me, and I'm excited about that. And that, I feel like, is truly the state we can get to, then where maybe ambition is not matched with that shame, that ego, that fear, all those other things that kind of twist it in a way where we can't really tell if it's ours anymore or the thing we think we're supposed to do.
It's so true. I was just thinking about how, like, it's, again, coming back to that, like, coat of armor. It's doing what you need to do to be able to inform without taking on other people's baggage around it. It's like, I think I might have shared this last time on the podcast, where something that comes up often, which I find interesting, like, I have the ability in this stage of my life to like step back and like be like, oh, that's so interesting. Tell somebody I have a podcast, or they know I have a podcast, and they're like, oh, that's so cool. You know, it's usually like my mom's friends or family or whatever. I don't know, actually. I shouldn't call my mom out for that, but it's not always her friends. Sorry, Mom. It's not always your friends, but just anybody. It's like always a once removed person. It literally, the first question is, how do you monetize that? And it's so interesting to me, because at first I was like, well, like, it's not a short-term play, it's a long-term play. No. And, you know, once I have so many followers, then I can, I'm just like, at this point, that was my reaction at first for a hot minute. And then I was like, really need to know. They're just being curious. They might have some sort of scarcity mindset issue. They might have some sort of like financial curiosity around my situation. I don't know what it is, right? And it doesn't really matter what it is or where it's coming from. But I just found that so curious. And like the old me was like trying that on and being like, oh my God, like, how am I monetizing this? When really I know my intention around my podcast and how first and foremost, it's like the one thing in my life I can truly say it's something that I freaking love doing and I would do it for free. And I think people say that a lot and they're kind of BSing. They're like, oh, I would like be a dentist for free. I'm like, I don't think you would.
No.
Would you? And there's a lot of things that I do in my work that I wouldn't do for free because I think like I really value myself and whatever. But like I genuinely love my podcast and I would do it for free. But that's not that. But then that's not to say that like I'm not wanting to build it into something bigger.
Right.
And that I have ambitions around it and what I want it to become and how I want to, you know, pair brands with, like the sponsors with like an awesome audience and have the audience be like, oh, that's such a cool product I never heard about. Like, I'm cool with that too, you know? So it's not to say that I'm like dampening my own ambition, but like, I don't actually know where I'm going with this. I'm losing my train of thought, but you know, it's like the people who put their insecurities or their questions or whatever onto you. It's how do you get to that place where you can just be like, meh, that's not for me. Like you said with Jordan, that's not mine.
Well, and re-expanding it out, like even when you said that around money, I think the idea being there's a certain, using my law example of like, well, your goal must be that you want to be a partner in a law firm. You know, clients of mine that work in large corporations, well, your goal must be to get to be the VP in this sector. Your goal must be to do this, this, and this, and make X amount of money, do these things. And I think it feels really hard for people because it's like, I mean, we also live in a system where everybody, it's like we want to celebrate people getting to the top and then we want to rip them the fuck down. And so there's this really interesting dynamic around it too. And so we have a really hard time with somebody being like, well, I actually, you know, if $1 million is for free, it's like just sitting on the table, you really only need $1,000. It's you just taking $1,000 and feeling fulfilled by that. Whereas other people, it's like, you got to take all million. That's what you have to do. And I feel like that's the shift of like, this is what I'm taking for me. And this is what feels right for me. Sometimes I don't need to get to the top. I don't need to make 7 figures. I don't ever need to do that to be okay in my life. I have what I need. And that's where I think the human design piece comes into play is like those different factors of a full life. Well, how much money do you really need to live a full life? So when someone asks those questions and they reduce your ambition or your success or your drive or whatever, their approval to how much money you're making or your status. I think a lot of this we see now of like, well, how many downloads, how many followers, how many of this? Gosh, you know what? I know that what I'm doing is having an impact because I see the inbox emails that I get with people saying that they've never thought about something or felt so seen before. I don't do it. Yes, I agree with you. I've worked really hard to get comfortable in knowing I am worth what I am charging for things. I also know that what I do is not rooted to the money I make. My shame is rooted to needing to make more money than Jordan. My shame is rooted to I need people to see my podcast or my YouTube channel or whatever at so many numbers and all these things. Absolutely. On the other side, I just want to put goodness out into the world and I trust that what I'm doing is good and it will have a ripple effect. So when I can come there, it's like, hey, I only need the $1,000 and I'm okay with that. And I'm okay if me being at $1,000 right now or whatever I'm taking in this moment is also allowing me to, when Everly gets off of school, I'm never fucking working when she's home. Every once in a while, I might have to do something, but when I am done with my work, she is done with where she's going to school and I can show up and I can be mom, family member, friend, like we can go do stuff. And she never has to experience the feeling that I felt, which is that work was more important than me. And I don't ever want her to have that. I do want her to know that work is important in the sense that it brings me joy. And whether she were to work in her home, outside of the home, make money or contribute with time and energy, whatever that is, it's important because it's something that fulfills me, not because I have to do it and my shame says so and I need to have X number of followers and $7,000 million in the bank.
Mic drop.
Yeah, which is perfect because look at our time. We're like...
Oh, man, my mind is just going crazy. I love these conversations. I feel like this is a free therapy session always. I'm just like, oh, so much to think about. As my daughter's asking me this morning as we're walking to preschool, but why do you have to work? And like me trying to describe to her as well that she's not going to preschool because we have to work. I mean, partly, but like we live in Vancouver, Canada. It's an extremely expensive city. Many cities are. We could create a situation where, didn't have to like work as much and like she didn't have to go to preschool. But like I was trying to describe to her that like it's really fun for her and like she's just in the starting phases of the preschool and whatever. But, trying to describe why we work or what we do at work and why she goes to preschool. It was so interesting. I was like definitely just, tripping over my words a lot. But it was cool for me to be like, no, this is actually super intentional. Like you're not going to preschool because we have to work. You're going to preschool because it's the decision that we've made because we think you're so ready and you're going to be so excited. Like she's so sad going and she's so happy when she's coming home.
Yeah.
Like she's having the time of her life. And I was trying to describe like, what I do for the parents I work with and how that brings me joy. And I don't know. Yeah. It's just such an ongoing piece.
I think with her too, if you can have the conversation around like a pie sort of idea and like we want you to have the fullest life possible. And if we didn't create opportunities to miss each other, we wouldn't be developing security. We wouldn't be developing depth in our relationship. Our brains can't be with one person or, mom and dad all the time. So like both of you, it's not just, well, we need to work. It's that you've learned that a full life is about more than X. And I think that's one of the things Everly and I talk about a lot is I think particularly because so much of my work has always been around when she goes to school or when she would go to my mother-in-law's house, whereas Jordan, because he has to work at all different hours, like she experienced dad going to work a lot more. Like mom goes to work after she drops me off at school, feels different. And so there are times where when I would have to do something, like if I had a speaking event and I had to drive somewhere or whatever, and Jordan was with her for the day, or maybe she went another day to my mother-in-law's house or something, it was like, she just really struggled. Like, but I just want to be with you, mom. I just want to be here. And I said, and if I didn't give you the opportunity to feel that and to miss me and then to come back at the end of the day so your brain can see mom's coming back and I can have fun with other people besides mom, I am not giving you the opportunity to develop your own sense of security and safety in the world. And I would ultimately be making it all about me. I mean, it's the same thing I say to clients is like, if you're only okay because of me, I fucked up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like you have to be okay outside of me. And so you're doing this. We're doing this for our kids. We're saying you need to feel seen, safe, and heard in the world, not just with me, but with other people. And if I don't give you that opportunity, I'm hurting you.
So
and it might be school, it might be work, it might be something else. But like at the end of the day, you have learned what helps you find balance. She is just getting this opportunity to figure that out. And the balance is seeing I can have a really full life without mom and dad with me. And I'm so excited when I get to spend time with them too. And I feel secure enough to know that I can miss them and I'll be okay while I'm missing them.
And I'm allowed to have fun with other people. Oh, thanks for that. I needed that today.
And she'll see it more and more. And you'll keep telling her this and you'll remind her that like, everything, like at the end of the day, if there were two options on the table in a given moment of like spend this moment with your daughter or work for 10 more hours, like you're pretty much inevitably going to spend the time with her. So it's like, how do you reinforce? Those are always hands down. If that's the decision on the table, 9 times out of 10, I want to choose this side because I love our time together. Doing this allows us to create these opportunities where we have those healthy opportunities to separate so that when we choose that time together, it feels way more intentional. So we talk about TV that way. If you watch TV every day, all day long, TV wouldn't be exciting. TV is exciting for you because you get one movie night a week. So then every time we watch TV, she is fucking pumped. The whole movie, she's in it. She wants to pause it and talk through what's happening. The whole rest of the week, we're talking about whoever these characters are, what they learned. Like it's so special to her. If we took that away by giving her free access to TV all the time, it wouldn't feel that way. If she didn't get the opportunity to miss you, if she didn't get the opportunity to go make other friends, eventually you guys would just stop spending quality time together.
Whoa. Okay, Kyira, this is full circle. The ambition. Andrea's childhood ambition would say the ambition is to just spend time with mom. Tunnel vision. Like that is like, right? It's like the one track boring. But what we're saying and what I do hope for my daughter is that she has a full, well-rounded, like quote unquote well-rounded. I don't mean that as like a should. I mean that as just like a try a bunch of different shit and see what sticks and what you enjoy. So like go meet other people, go have experiences, like see what you like and what you don't like. But like it would be so, and she's not going to understand that right now. And that's okay. But we continue to debrief and we'll continue to talk about it. But like, this is part of like the full life that I personally want her to have. My husband, I want her to have. So there you go. That's ambition to me.
There we go. And then for both of us to internalize. And then that means trying this on.
Yeah.
Our coaching business, our speaking, all the different things that we're doing, the podcast. And as long as it fuels us and feels good and it's a spot we want to give in the pie, do it. And then if something happens where it's no longer a seat we want to give it at the table or a spot in the pie or, I don't know, the river we want to swim up, whatever thing sticks with people because you and I are both way too visual. We've given way too many different experiences. Then you say, okay, and you move on. The same way that we would teach our kids, oh, you tried football and you didn't like it. Let's try something else.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you failed because you played flag football and you thought it wasn't super fun or you don't want to do it anymore or you think something else is more interesting. It means how cool that you tried something.
Yep.
And then you made the decision that it wasn't right for you and you chose to do something else, not feeling like you either have to see it through until you are successful or that means you're a failure.
And why? Like, why do we lose that? Why do we lose that value of like the person who tries so many different things and is rewarded for it versus now we're like, well, I have a career coaching business for parents. And that's the only freaking thing I do. No, like, why am I obsessed with like making that a huge success first before I'm allowed to go try something else? So why do we continue to do that? Well, food for thought.
I know. I love it. Well, I think this is why we need to keep having conversations in different iterations. Cause I think you and I both just like, there's a bird that sits right outside of our house and is like constantly, it's called a tui. I don't know anything about their patterns.
I thought this was a euphemism. This is an actual bird.
Oh no, there's an actual bird outside of our house.
This was another analogy.
And he is active. No, this is real. And it's like every day you'll hear this little like shuffling sound and it's like he's going in and I think he's like clearing up his home or just like looking for stuff. I don't really know, but just like constantly like moving these little leaves, moving these little leaves, moving these little leaves and just like shaking things up. And I feel like that's what our conversations do is like, we're just like shifting it around a little bit to see what are we missing?
Yeah.
Where have we like, where somebody gave us a sheet of paper or like gave us a stack of books and we set them on our desk and now we can't see this little reminder note that says you are worthy and lovable just as you are, whatever it is. Like we're just like, we come in and we shake things up and then we just see what we've lost track of or what space we can clear to put something new in or to allow that exploration. And so I'm just going to, continue to put it into the universe to many more interactions you and I are going to have, whether it's on podcasts and different settings, like to more of this. This
when
is
we're on
what
TV
I want.
Together.
Yeah, right. Well, when we finally say, okay, sure. You've begged us enough.
I know.
We're there.
When we give in. Yeah.
Yeah. We start our own talk show and everybody's on it with us. I mean,
dangerous.
Not a bad idea. Maybe
it's
we
not
need
a
to
bad
manifest.
idea. It's not a bad idea. We'd be so good.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now I want you to imagine you're listening to this in 2 months, 3 months, whatever. Your desk has inevitably gotten, your mental desk a little bit more filled with stuff. You maybe lost track of some of these things. What do you want to remind yourself when you come back to this?
Get off the one track. That's not who you are. That's not who you want to be. That's the first thing that came to mind.
It's never who you were.
Value.
Like you've literally never been that way.
I was born multitasking, multi-doing, not in a way that's like multi having fun.
Yeah.
So get back to doing that in all areas. Like stop pretending like you need to be the mom who has like the set routines. I don't have set routines and I don't think they work for me. I don't think they work for a lot of people. Rhythms over routines. And so apply all of that to all areas. And specifically right now where I'm feeling friction is in my business. and where do I want to create and what do I want to do? Because I'm trying to stick to this like one path thing where I'm one person who does one thing, and that is not me. So I'm going to re-listen to this.
And maybe, just reminding yourself too, as you go through, of you are going to hinder your value and effect in the world if you try to force yourself to do that, because part of your beauty, so I will remind people, I know I said it in the intro, but I will remind people, if you have not listened to our first episode together, please go back and do that, where we talk about these major career shifts and decisions that you made. We wouldn't have the beauty that you've brought into the world if you didn't allow yourself that multi-track exploration and that curiosity and that willingness to ask questions. And if you force yourself there, you're going to lose the magic that you bring. And so remembering, sometimes our biggest gift comes from our willingness to stay true to our authentic selves, so we can actually show up the way we want to. And we'd be very, very, very dehydrated if we didn't have you every day, because we need it. It's very nourishing. It's this very it's a fresh drink of water when you share things and you put things in perspective for the world.
Thank you.
You're so
I will
welcome.
just say thank you. I will not deflect.
There we go. Look at you. Look at this. So much change. It's awesome. And y'all can't see it, but I love the face as we are talking through this, and just that slight bit of discomfort, but also the trust that it's genuine and we don't have to deflect or explain or any of that. So listeners, I hope as you are kind of coming to the end of this, that you remind yourself that whether we're talking ambition or any other word that you heard growing up, there's so much more to it than what we first kind of come to see. There's nothing wrong with expanding the definition or your sense of self. And that at the end of the day, anything about how our life design is put together is really in our control. And we get to decide how we're going to show up to our life and the way that we're going to focus our efforts and our energy and our intention. And so let go of the stuff we can't control, which is everybody else. Focus on you, what feels right and true to you, and allow the possibility that can evolve and change, and just build a relationship with yourself where you can listen enough to change course when it's right for you. As always, if this episode was impactful for you, send us a voice memo, leave a comment, send me an email. Just tell us what came up for you, how we can continue to support you, what we need to talk about in maybe episode 3 when we're back together again. And also make sure that you go to the show notes and check out all of the amazing stuff that Andrea has. Podcast is number 1, but I did check out this new website today and I saw how amazing and beautiful it is. So also just getting to learn more about you very specifically on that. If it's like, oh my gosh, I need to work with her, then reach out. I can tell you firsthand, this is not a fake sense of self. Like, she is just this real and raw and honest and just makes you feel safe. And so reach out if it feels like the right fit for you. And as always, we will be back next Sunday with another episode.